How Lolita became so desirable. Lolita, light of my life, fire of my loins, my sin, my soul. Lolita. The tip of the tongue taking a trip of 3 steps down the palate to tap at 3 on the teeth. Lolita. She was low, plain low in the morning, standing 4 feet 10 in one sock. She was Lola in slacks. She was Dolly at school. She was Dolores on the dotted line, but in my arms she was always Lolita. This is how Humbert starts off his story. Already in the very first lines we learn that the girl more known as Lolita isn't actually Lolita. She is Dolores, Dolly Hayes, a 12-year-old girl with whom our protagonist, Humbert, also a decoy name, madly falls in love with. This man, well in his 30s, even marries Dolores' mother, Charlotte Hayes, hoping to get closer to the girl. After Charlotte passes away, he takes Dolores and escapes the law with her through the States, while also having a sexual relationship with the child. The setting sounds horrible, doesn't it? But how did it become so romanticized? Red heart-shaped sunglasses and nymphs. We are looking at the world through Humbert's lens. Everything we see or feel is what he tells us. However, we can still recognize how bad of a person he actually is. The obvious, child molestation aside, he is incredibly abusive and has a huge superior complex. He used to bend his ex-wife's injured wrist in order to make her submit to his will. After getting remarried, he plans a murder in Charlotte, but doesn't go through with it. With Dolores, he hurts her wrist while fighting, uses emotional abuse, such as scaring her with authorities and orphanages. When Humbert suspects her of cheating or tampering with his notes, he slaps and rapes her as a punishment. Adding on to the list, he attempts on drugging her in order to have sex with her, and drugs her mother just to test out how the medicine is working. He reaches the height of his violent behavior when killing Claire Quilty in the end of the story. But we quickly learn how Dolores isn't an angel either. She has a bad temper, she's stubborn, and someone you wouldn't consider proper at all. She throws tantrums throughout the story and acts difficult unless Humbert has promised her something to look forward to. In fact, when I watched the movie for the first time, my mother walked past and said, "That girl is awful." That pretty much sums up her behavior. Before Dolores, there was a girl named Annabelle, Humbert's first love, from his teenage years. After her death, Humbert spends his life lusting after young girls, who he calls nymphets. Dolores is pretty much Annabelle's replacement for Humbert. Her appearance reminds him of her, which leads to the obsession. But fairly quickly, he learns that she isn't like Annabelle. She isn't faithful to him. She doesn't love him the way Annabelle did. But he is obsessed, meaning that he doesn't care. He is head over heels in love with this child. Dolores, on the other hand, sees their relationship as an exchange. He gives her money and lets her live alongside him. She is scared of becoming government property, and she gives him her body. But surprisingly, she isn't all oblivious on the illegality that's going on, as every now and then she calls him things like rapist or murderer, and their relationship incest. In other words, she sees the wrongs. In her mind, the pros just outweigh them. In the book, it's stated that she is intelligent, an IQ of 150, meaning that she isn't as naive as she comes off. Humbert calls Dolores his pet, like she's his property, his daughter, his lover. And he spends his days stalking her, while being paranoid of her blabbing or running away. As she grows older, she does gain her independence and finds her way around his rules. Finally, she does end up running away and escaping him with some help. Nabokov's book Lolita, published in 1955, is a classic, but the 2 movies based on it are what has pushed the romanticization to what we know it as today. There are two movies, 1962 from Stanley Kubrick and 1997 by Adrian Leigh. Lolita, 1962, starring James Mason and Sue Lyon at 14, brought us the iconic red heart-shaped sunglasses. However, it is actually a black and white movie. The iconic glasses come from posters used in marketing. A picture of her in the glasses and the statement, "How did they ever make a movie of Lolita?" The phrase slightly pokes fun of the fuss around Lolita. It was a controversial book, and this was a controversial movie. And because the times were different, there isn't much skinship or violence in the movie to show us Dolores's and Humbert's relationship. In fact, Lolita is aged up to make the cut into theaters. Here is actually my initial review of it. Lolita, 1962. Before diving into the movies, I read the book. I have to say, the book wasn't that entertaining for me, but I think it might be because I'm not into literature. Julian looked exactly how I imagined Lolita to look like when reading the book. Of course older, but I mean it was decades ago, and still today casting an actual 12-year-old wouldn't be the way to go. This movie didn't really follow the book. I mean it did, but it definitely had some holes in it. Also, you couldn't really feel Humbert's obsessive love towards Lolita. Talking about Lolita, I don't think she was once referred as Dolores in it. They just made her Lolita from the start, if I'm correct. They didn't even kiss once during the 2.5 hours. Mostly they felt like father and daughter, what basically defeats the whole idea about whatever. I'll blame it on the time the movie was released. They kept Dolores' attitude though, a little watered down if I remember right, but still something. To correct past me, they actually do call her by her actual name every now and then, but I do stand behind the statement that Humbert comes off awfully tolerable, likeable, in this adaptation. And here is what 17-year-old me has to say about the Adrian Leigh movie. Lolita, 1997. This one followed the book more closely compared to 1962. I guess this is the movie where the nymphet aesthetic is based on. Honestly, I have my opinions on all that, but not today. Looking at the visual side, the movie does have nice costuming that fits the characters and a retroist feel to it that I like. In this one they did kiss, more than kiss. I think I should note that the actress was like 16, 17 in this movie. I mean, I read somewhere they used a body double, but still, super uncomfortable. It's supposed to be. They did great job at showing how awful and gross the relationship is. They also did great job at portraying Humbert's feelings and obsession through the narration. Just like the previous movie and the book, it felt like different happenings just pasted together. Lolita followed the book Dolores pretty well, with a fiery attitude, flirting and all. Not much more to say. Better execution than 1962 had. I got to compare this to the book, so I enjoyed watching it. But if you watch it without any previous knowledge, I doubt it'll be that interesting. I wouldn't praise the movie as much as younger me did. It isn't as great, but it does better job at sticking to the source material. It is quite explicit, but Dolores as character is still aged up. Dominic Swain, who plays her, is 17 in the movie. However, watching this child kissing a fully grown adult does make the viewer nauseous enough. In this adaptation, got to admit, Humbert, played by Jeremy Irons, is an attractive man. And that right there makes all the difference, since when the character is attractive, all their wrongdoings seem to fade into the background of fan edits and thirst traps. Niragi in Alice in Borderland. On top of that, the visual outlook of this movie is beautiful, from scenes to color schemes, incredibly pleasing to look at. The costumes, especially Dolores's, are unique and therefore outstanding for the time it was released. This is where the nymphet aesthetic stems from, and this is the movie where most of the shots you will see on social media are from. Here are a few honorable mentions of other weird and disgusting things Humbert did because I lived through them, and now you have too. First, licking Dolores's eyeball. Second, squeezing the pus out of her mosquito bites and sucking it. And third, This line from the 1997 movie. Give me a quarter and a time, Dolores. What for, Humbert? For the magic fingers, Dolores. My magic fingers aren't enough, Humbert. And I am pretty sure he has a food fetish, considering all the feet shots and amount of times he tells the reader that he wants to caress her feet. But how did Dolores, the very much underage child, get this image of some kind of a seducer? Well, throughout the story, we see her talking to multiple men. She enjoys having their admiring eyes on her. Dolores doesn't stay faithful to Humbert and her relationship, and she actually tells him about the sexual games she played with her friends. She is the one who kisses Humbert, thus making the first move. She seduced him into having sex with her for the first time. But we have to remember that this is all told from Humbert's perspective, Humbert who sees everything and everyone regarding Dolores as a threat. We do sense her having a little crush on him when they are still living with Charlotte, but later on that all seems to fade away as she starts to believe that he killed her mother. The whole idea of nymphets is introduced as something only some girls possess, and these little girls choose to show their true nature to only few chosen older men, meaning that the blame is shifted away from Humbert or any other pedophile for that matter and painted right on Dolores. In the 1997 version, whenever there is sexual tension or undertones in a scene, she is more often than not the one coming on to Humbert, even if it was just to get something. Relationships with older men and daddy issues have been sexualized time and time again in media. The extent of Lolita isn't as common, but let's be real for a second. The society has always loved little girls. The social media has also played a big part in this, where pictures of the 1997 movie has been going around Tumblr and TikTok as an aesthetic. Young girls who don't fully understand the power they have and what they are actually romanticizing here. The big bad isn't Lolita. The big bad is the normalization of these types of relationships and rebranding them as something desirable. But the story is a classic for a reason, and I am actually really interested in the ways both the book and the movies have shaped our current media. If they were to make a new adaptation in the modern days, I'd gladly give it a watch. I can't lie, the book is beautifully written. Obviously, I don't mean the setting of it, or I don't mean the plot, but the way Humbert talks about Dolores and his love towards her. That is inevitably an additional reason why Lolita is so romanticized. It is dressed into a tragic love story, Romeo and Juliet, where their love is forbidden, and in the end they can't live without each other, so they die. But the story is way more complex than that, and that's what has kept it so interesting for decades. Right in the foreword, the writer admits how magically Humbert tells his story, having us hooked on his words while simultaneously detesting his accents. The obsession is put in a pretty package with this quote, not showcasing the whole context, but I do want to share it with you. Doing this alone would have demonstrated how the romanticization of Lolita works. Lolita, I said. This may be neither here nor there, but I have to say it. Life is very short. From here to that old car you know so well, is a stretch of 25 paces. It is a very short walk. Make those 25 steps. Now, right now, come just as you are, and we shall live happily ever after. And that's all. That's the whole essay. Thank you for listening to me. I hope you enjoyed this type of scripted video for a change. I had fun reading and watching the movies, and lastly putting them all together into this essay. And if you're interested, you can actually read it down below. I have linked the Notion page down there. So yeah, thank you for watching, and thank you for watching and subscribing to my channel. It's absolutely insane. Like, I know it's not a lot, but to me, it's crazy that people have cared enough to click the subscribe button to like actually see what I'm up to. So I am really thankful for that. And I am sending a lot of hugs and a lot of love to all of you, and I appreciate you so much. I'm totally having fun, and I hope you are too. Anyway, we'll see next week in the next video, and yeah, see you. Bye. I just forgot. I'm going to show you the outfit. I've been forgetting to do this, so here's the outfit. We have we have my heart-shaped sunglasses to go with the theme, and we have this shirt. It has a little bow on the back. This is a cheap shirt. This is a cheap shirt from like AliExpress or something. And we have these jeans. I think these are Calvin Klein like retro. I can't find them. They're like retro or like 90s or something like that. Straight jeans. So yeah, this is the outfit.